Exception management in eramba comes in three ways. That's because we have three different types of exceptions. We have here the risk exceptions, and they apply to your risks. You have policy exceptions, and they apply to your policies. And you also have compliance exceptions, and they apply to your compliance requirements. The three modules work 99% the same way, it's just that they apply to these three different scenarios. A policy exception will be used when, for example, you have a policy that says that developers cannot work on production databases, and someone needs an exception. Someone needs to get that access. And so what you can do is you can go to the policy exception module, create an exception, assign it to that developer, set an expiration against which you can send notifications like reminders and the deadline, and keep track of those exceptions that you have granted. A risk exception is used when you have a risk for which the treatment has not been agreed in a way that you want it to be agreed, and someone said, well, it is where it is. And so what you can do is you can create a risk exception, you set that person that said, well, it is what it is, you set an expiration, and again, until this expiration, that was the decision taken. And again, these exceptions will be applied to your risks. A compliance exception is used in the case where a compliance requirement does not apply to your organization for some reason. So for example, if you are doing pci-dss, some requirements on PCI apply to very specific companies called service providers. If you're not a service provider, those requirements don't apply to you. And so what you can do is you can create a compliance exception and link it to those compliance requirements. And again, the same process. Someone said, well, that's a decision until that date. And on that date, you basically have to review that expiration. Now, I will be using the risk exception module as a way to explain the general functionalities of the module. But again, what I'm showing you here applies basically to any other exception. A typical exception, as I discussed before, has a title where you describe what is going on, who take the decision to create the exception, to approve the exception. You have an expiration, and this date will be in the future, and you can set up notifications that will trigger against this date. So you could say, send an email 1 day, 10 days, 30 days before the expiration date, send that to the requester, so the requester can review the exception. When the requester will log in, will click on the email, will log in into eramba, all comments and all discussions about the exception will be logged in here in the form of comments and attachments. A comment and attachment here documents who said what and when, and the idea is to form a trail that will help to substantiate any kind of discussion about this exception. Exceptions can be open or closed, and if they're open and their expiration date is in the future, that's fine, they will be okay. Now, if your expirations are open and the expiration is in the past, well, that will highlight the expired status, meaning this thing should have been reviewed, but it hasn't been the case. These are statuses that are defined here under the status menu bar. We ship with system statuses of these two, but you can create your own dynamic statuses. Creating dynamic statuses basically means that you set a name, a description, a color, whether you want them to be visible or not, and then you set the conditions upon which you want this to trigger. And as you can see, there's many options in how to do this. Now, once you create your dynamic statuses, another good thing is you can trigger email against these things. So when they switch on or they switch off, so the conditions matches or stop matching, you can also send notifications. So you can send a notification on the expired status to the requester, notifying that person that the exception has been set as expired. You will be using filters for sure. Filters is the way we make questions to eramba, and the answer comes in the form of these tables. You can export these tables as CSV files, and you can change the conditions if you want. There's many ways in which you can build these filters, and the system will come with a few default exceptions for you. For example, expire exceptions or exceptions that will expire in the next 14 days. Once you create a filter and you save it, you can send that to people as a report. So you could create a filter that says, okay, this one, for example, exceptions that will expire in 14 days, and you create a report notification that will run every 7 days, and whatever result comes every 7 days will be sent to you by email as a CSV or a PDF. So you get all these filters by email directly to you. In any module in eramba, you will basically use forms to create things. So when you create your exceptions in this case, you can use forms or CSV imports. CSV imports is typically what you will use if you, of course, have to bulk import many items. When you use the form, you can use custom fields to change the title of the fields, description of the fields. You can hide some of the fields. You can add new tabs, add new fields, and move fields upside down. That's great because it allows you to customize the form to something that works best for you. Under customization, as you can see, I have here the tab and all the fields in there. And again, you can move them upside down. You can hide them. You can create new tabs. Someone here create a new tab. You can rename fields, and also you can add new fields. If I choose to add a new field, I need to set the name, the type of field, and you see you have many options in which we can create these fields, description, and whether it's mandatory or not. Any field you create is structured database, is part of the database, so it means that they will also, these fields you create will be available to you. eramba has reporting as well, so you have item and section reports. In both cases, what you have are templates. So if I go here and I click on new report because I want to create my new report, you just drag and drop these widgets until you create the template that you want to create, the template that works for you. You can then run that template. You just go to item, system report, and you basically run it. Yeah. So the item reports explain items. So these things are items. So if you want to make a report about this item, you have to select the item, go to reports, and eramba will show you the templates available to you. If you're clicking there, the report will basically run. This is a text widget, this is a table widget, and all these are table widgets actually. The section report is the one that takes all the items in the module and summarize them into a single report. And you launch it from here. You see, if I select the report, I go to view, and now eramba will create a report based on the template, but taking in consideration all items in this module. So we have here a couple of charts, but again, you can basically put whatever you want in there.